All right, well, thank you guys for joining us for another Health Truth Life video, and we are back to the Matrix again for one of only a few more.
Man,
We're on the last concept here under relationships.
21.
21. We're starting reverse here.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of them, we started at the top and worked our way down, but now we're starting at the bottom, working our way up.
Mm-hmm.
And we're
Reason?
What's the reason?
Why is the reason? Well, we're ending up on God, obviously.
Yes.
You guys clearly know we have a bent towards making sure people are coordinating their faith with their health, and because we do believe it has a big role in your health, if not one of your biggest. So the last part of the relationship component is God, which we'll talk about last.
Yeah.
But the first thing we want to talk about on this Matrix, adventure, as part of this section of relationships is the past. And I believe that every one of us has a relationship with our past. And what I've seen with patients is if they haven't come to terms or grips with their past or components of their past, whether it's forgiveness of themselves or others, there still can be lingering states of disease or mental illness and or angst that just is still ruminating and also potentially causing physical symptoms, whether it's gastric, whether it's blood pressure, what have you, depression. So there's also with past a component of how genetics play a role to our wellness and our health. Because there are genetic dysfunctions, there are genetic diseases that we have to be aware of. So that's a component of health as well. So both of those do have to do with kind of our past.
Pondering our past, it doesn't always have to be a negative. I think that's one thing that we're going to get into, but you can look back on our lives and be encouraged of a lot of the positive things that have happened and been handed down to us. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, actually, and from a group I like to follow, All Pro Dads.
Okay.
I've never heard of them.
I have.
But they did a podcast specifically on how your past with your father, as your dad, like how has that impacted your life? And I love that they went over, find the good things, like look at the positive things and focus on those. You know. And we're going to get into this. We're going to unpack this, but for sure, there's value in looking at the bad as well in order to handle it, address it, seek that forgiveness, repentance, whatever it is that you need to work on. So there's value in both, looking back at the past in order to grow and to let your present and your future, be better, so.
I guess first and foremost, don't we all have a past?
Yeah.
So aren't all of our pasts in some degrees checkered? That's kind of just a funny point here. Decided to wear this shirt and so did Jason, and just happenstance they're both kind of checkered shirts, and I think it's important to point that out though, that all of us have a past that you kind of look back and go, man, I wish I didn't do that, or I really am upset that happened to me by that person, or that I put myself in that situation with that relationship or that incident. These are things that I think that we all have to come to grips with that fact, and then be, as you're very well at talking about, but being transparent about it to recognize that that's part of the healing process. Yeah,
because if we're not real about it, if we don't take the time to actually look back at it and dig into it, and be real with it, don't try to. I think a lot of times we try to see things from a different perspective, not in a real way, to avoid hurt, to avoid hard conversations, to avoid just tough situations. And if we don't address those in a real way, we can't move forward. There can't be that ultimate healing that we need in order to have that progress and move on, for our future. So
good point.
So we'll dig into it here. We'll start. So we have the past, and you have a C.S. Lewis quote here from the Screw Tape Letters, and he says, "The past is frozen and no longer flows, and the present is all lit up with eternal rays." Man, that's good.
Ties on to the video we just did about the Jimmy Buffett lyrics of, "Hey, the time is now. And we have all we've got is right now." We certainly, as believers, have a belief and a faith in our future that we believe God has an authorship of, but at the same time, from a temporal or from a material human perspective, we really in our life right now, we just have this present moment to know. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So
it's funny though, how much of our life do we live either stuck in the past from past hurt, past sins that we've committed or that have been committed against us, or how much of it are we thinking about and worrying about the future? So you're right, it's just, man, we need to be living in the present, just living each day, letting go of the past, not worrying about the future. Man, how liberating is that? And the fact that we can, and we're encouraged by God to do that. You know, that's where ultimate freedom comes from, is knowing the past is forgiven. You know, you can move forward from that. It's been paid for and dealt with. And then your future is good and it's secured because God is good and He holds our future. So then there's ultimate liberation and freedom for the day, for the moment. You know,
that's profound. Yeah,
it is. I
like it.
So you start out the concept sheet here with the genetic portion of it, and talking about the genetic predisposition via mutation or polymorphism is a way in which the past plays a role in one's overall health.
That's basically your genetic traits or your genetic codes, I guess, because the DNA is basically a code for the types of proteins your body makes, the types of enzymes it makes, the deficiencies or not that you've got. And so that's passed down from generation to generation to generation. What's interesting, there's a new field of epigenetics, which is kind of 20 years ago would have been classified as somewhat science fiction, in that our genes can get tagged to be turned on or off at greater or lesser degrees based on the lifestyle approaches of our ancestors. Wow. So actually what we do, but as we are before having kids, we can actually tag our DNA that gets passed down. That form of epigenetics just is kind of profound, because it indicates that, hey, what we do in life does affect our next generation physically. We know it affects them emotionally, spiritually, and all that, but this is, that whole field of epigenetics is kind of interesting. But just the whole concept of genetics is it does have to do with ancestral lineage and stuff getting passed down. Yeah.
So a lot of that we're referring to, it's kind of out of your control. It's passed down.
Can't be.
So.
Although the epigenetics going future is under your control and is under your control with respect to what you eat, how you think, what you think, and going forward. So that's
If only we were mature enough at that age. I was just thinking about myself, like prior to having kids. Man, at least for me, I wasn't in the mindset of what I'm doing right now and how that's affecting, my future. So, but God's gracious and kind, and He definitely works through things, and but we can learn and grow from all of it, good and bad. The risk of developing a genetic-related disease process depends on the type of mutation as well as the penetrance of that certain alteration.
In other words, how much that genetic factor penetrates into your physical self. So some genetic components or genetic abnormalities don't penetrate as deeply or as much, but some do. So it's just kind of that basis.
Okay. Did you want to keep going with this aspect of it for now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess keep reading that if you would.
Yeah. So let's say penetrance is defined as the proportion of individuals with a genetic variant who exhibit signs or symptoms of the condition associated with the alteration.
Right.
So a particular note, the environment in which one is continually exposed to in the form of air, water, nutrients, stress, and toxins is known to play a significant role in the degree of the penetrance.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's certainly a big component of where your lifestyle does play a role in that. And so we have patients that have genetic predispositions to certain things, but if you temper their lifestyle, then the risk of that does lower. So like that's an example for something like ApoE4 is potentially associated with a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease in patients, but there are lifestyle things that can be done that can lower that risk potentially.
So it's pretty foolish to say like, it's just hereditary, I can't do anything about this.
It's 100% foolish to say that. I hate to say that, and I don't want to be a pain or be like, beating you over the head, but I don't like when people come in and say, I got diabetes because my dad had diabetes.
Yeah.
No, you have diabetes because you have potentially a genetic predisposition, but you're eating crap food and you're not taking care of yourself. And it's a hard thing to hear.
Right.
And of course, it could be something else going on.
Sure.
I've got grace for that, and we all should have grace. But at the same time, I think we shouldn't blame others for that.
It can be used as an excuse almost, and if people don't tend to not want to put forth that effort to make those changes, because it's not going to change anything. But that's what we're saying. Like, it can, you know.
Absolutely, and will.
So we have discovered how much genetics play into our predilection to disease, and how genetic makeup is a reflection of our familial past. So moving forward, in my personal and medical experience, anxiety, depression, and chronic stress syndromes, which played a large percentage of individuals, appear to have a consistent correlation with one continually ruminating on or never fully recovering from painful incidents in the past, and on the pain, regret, and loss already experienced. So thusly, a lack of maintaining focus on the present reality while remaining fixated or unhealed from previous trauma can serve as a root of many health challenges.
And we've seen that, I'm sure many physicians have seen that, and probably you out there can relate to some of this.
This one I feel like we all,
have a component.
Yes, have a component of this. We have to face this. We all have to face our past and look back and see how it has hurt us and how it challenges us. And either we have the option. It's a fork in the road. You either forgive others for the hurt they've caused you, forgive yourself for your own sin and ways you've hurt others, or the fork is you kind of become bitter and you let it fester and then a component of that side over there is learning too. Like learning from your past that's a very important lesson. A lot of people don't. And I guess they continue to make the same mistakes. I certainly have had times in my life where I've done that, and certainly still can. But I guess it's just a component to always be humble enough to learn from your mistakes and not put yourself in that situation again that's going to put you in the same results that you were in years before that you didn't learn from. So get good at saying I'm sorry. Like that's something that have been challenged with, and even like with my kids, like, man, we got to get better at asking for forgiveness, saying we're sorry, because we all mess up. We all make mistakes.
We all do. And you can't go back, can you?
No.
Can't go back.
Yeah.
It's impossible to go back.
Yeah. So the way that, go ahead.
Reminds me of this story, and I'm going to put this link down below. Another concept that I wrote a while ago, actually it was last year, that life is like a jet ski. Think about this. Okay. Think about this. It's profound. Why is life like a jet ski? Rather than
there's no
reverse. A boat. Yes, there's no reverse. You can't go back.
You can turn.
You can turn. You can slow down, but you're still going to cruise a little. You may come to a pause. You can't have a reverse. Wow. It's kind of pretty neat. And now a boat can't do that. A car can't do that. But a jet ski, you're always going forward to some extent, or you're stopping.
A boat can and a car can do that.
They can, but they also can go in reverse.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You can't go in reverse with a jet ski.
That's crazy.
So
there is another C.S. Lewis quote I really like where he talks about. He says, "You can't go back and change the beginning or the past, but you can start where you are and change the ending."
I love it.
So I love that too. So wherever you are, you can. You can't change what's done, what has been done to you or what you have done. But you can change how that is affecting you right now and how it affects your future life. Yeah. And that's huge.
Get that through my head, right? And your head. We all can have that reassurance, but also that reminder to continue to focus on that.
Why do you think it is? I'm just curious. Why do we get stuck? Like it seems like that is the natural tendency for us, is to get stuck in the past and dwelling on the negatives.
There is a component of that that's tied into neurochemistry. There are circuit loops that you can actually get stuck in that were put in you through your experiences as a child. And so those circuits can get re-stimulated if you're put into situations that are similar, whether that's triggering or what have you. But there's neurochemistry evidence and research and neuropsychology research to show some of this. Now, getting out of those loops can be challenging, but sometimes it can be just like that. And so it's interesting. I think there's probably a spiritual component to it as well. But there's a mindset shift that can take place or may have to take place to actually say, look, I am not going there, and have ways of training your thinking and your mindset to not go there. I'll tell you that one thing I use that I'll get in some potential threats of going back into links of the past for myself, and I'll focus on a verse which is power, love, sound mind. God doesn't give me a spirit of fear, but power, love, sound mind, because fear is something I've struggled with in the past, and being not powerful has been something like a fear of mine, to not be powerful. And then when I'm in those phases, I'm not as loving. So it's kind of like when I get the power and sound mind right, then the love is just a natural manifestation of recognizing that God's power and his sound mind can flow through me as long as I just turn to him for it. Then the love flows as a secondary effect. So
that fear does, you're right, it keeps you in bondage and prevents you from freely living and freely loving. But you're right, when you allow God and his love and that knowledge of him and awareness of his presence to kind of flow through you, it gets rid of that fear and that anxiety, and you can freely.
I think Jesus came to teach love. I really do. I think that he went through, obviously, faith, open love. Love is the greatest. It's love. It's open arms before judgment and anything. It doesn't mean you don't judge. It doesn't mean you don't have the concept of sin and missing the mark. But it means you love first, and you love despite the challenge.
Where I would get stuck a lot, spiritually, is with kind of shame and condemnation. I would get stuck there and still have a tendency to if I'm not mindful of it. But 1 John 1:9 says that if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. So, we can bank on that whenever we struggle with the sin, whenever we feel like we've just blown it, we've lost it, and now, I would struggle with that. Like, God he doesn't love me anymore, like I've let him down again. Oh man. But it's never been about me and how much I can love God and how close I can hold on to him. Like, it's like you just said, man, Jesus was all about love, and it's all about how much he loves and forgives me and how he's holding on to me, And so every time I confess my sins, man, it's done, it's forgiven. I don't have to hold on to any of that guilt or shame anymore, because Jesus died for that on the cross. He took all that, and so I'm free. So I don't have to let past sins consume me and get me down and get me consumed with guilt and shame and all that. So there is ultimate freedom, there.
And I have a verse from Galatians down there that speak about.
I love that, man.
Give that.
It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery.
It has many contexts with what we've dealt with in the past few years. Don't be put in a state of bondage. Don't be put in a state of bondage by government, by religion. I mean, that's who Jesus came to talk against, was the leaders of the religious authority and the leaders of the government authority. And, he led a spiritual revolution in a sense without lifting a weapon. I mean, it's incredible.
So where does that freedom come from?
Comes from him.
Totally from him.
But it's that freedom to live in our image that God gave us that we have lost track of. And the fall obviously made us lose track of that. Jesus came to kind of, hey, here are the keys, guys. This is the kingdom of God. I'm here. Right?
It's neat because he knew we were going to sin. He knew we were going to turn our backs on him. He knew we were going to get stuck in the past, not being able to move forward. But he came, died on the cross, took our place there, and set us free. So our freedom is in him. And so now we're free from our past, we're free from our current sin, we're free from our future. So we can go forward. We're totally free. We're totally liberated in him and through him. So if you haven't accepted that or don't believe that he is your freedom, Jesus Christ is for real your freedom.
This is a challenge. It's a challenge for me. I'm not claiming not being in sin or being sin free, but I think it's so interesting when he talks to goodness, the adulterous woman who was getting ready to be stoned. And after those who were accusing her were getting ready to stone her and went away after Jesus rebuked them, he tells the woman, what does he say? He says, arise and sin no more. He's implying that is he implying that you can't sin no more? Or that you may not be able to sin no more? Right. Well, why would he say it? You know, and again, I'm not saying that we can get to that spiritual whatever nirvana where you don't ever sin, but it's kind of a challenge. I know, right? Yeah. But it's just, it's something that makes me go, man, it's just one of those spiritual questions where if he says it, it probably means it, you know?
He's getting her, obviously, to realize, man, like the lifestyle she was living wasn't the lifestyle he created her to live.
And sin no more means just miss the mark no more. He's saying miss the mark no more.
Right.
And that's the definition of sin, missing the mark. So she was obviously missing the mark, and it was leading her to live in a state of hell in her own life.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I love that because his heart for her was love and to draw her back. Not to judge and condemn, and he wasn't pointing the finger, but I love that because he told them, he who has no sin cast the first stone, and like you said, they were gone. They got up and walked away because they're living in sin too, just like her. They recognized that. That's
oldest first.
That's what we all have in common, and that's why we can have the grace to deal with our past hurts from loved ones, if it's spouses, parents, whatever. We can show them grace and forgiveness, and that's where we have the power for the present and then for the future to move forward in love. It's all about forgiveness and grace, sharing the love of God. A couple more verses, and then I love this quote from your dad too, but we'll get so Isaiah 43:18 through 19, it says, forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing, now it springs up, do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. I love that.
That's awesome.
Man, isn't that great? Streams in the wasteland. He's doing that. So don't dwell on the past. Like, man, this world is crazy. There's crazy stuff going on right now. And you could get so caught up in worry and stress and dread and fear. But man, do we not perceive this? Like, he is making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. So be encouraged by that. And this quote from your dad, I love it. Onward, upward, and never backward.
What I understand is their Pensacola High School graduating class motto was that quote.
Cool, really cool.
And he would say it often. And they had some phenomenal people in their class, and just the way they were taught, the way they were encouraged, the way they were lifted up and spoken highly of. And they've got judges, they've got military admirals, they've got other doctors and lawyers. Phenomenal individuals that did great things throughout the world. And that class was very special from what my dad would recall.
Cool.
But that onward, upward, never backward, that's something we can all attach on to of, hey, don't ever look back. Learn from the past, but keep walking forward. Because if I live in the past, oh man, if you put me in my past, I'll be stuck and I'll go back to, ways of thinking that are not healthy. So, certainly an encouragement to y'all to live in that concept of onward, upward, never backward, regardless of what tomorrow holds.
It's great. I love C.S. Lewis. We quote him a lot, but he does have another quote talking about the good that can come from looking at our past. He says, we must be aware of the past. Mustn't we? Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean that any fixing of the mind on old evils beyond what is absolutely necessary for repenting of our own sins and forgiving those of others is certainly useless and usually bad for us. So unless we're looking at the past, and this is what I encourage you guys to do. If you're looking at your past and you have relationships that are broken, or you're struggling getting past something from the past, then do think about it and do go to that person. And forgiveness is huge. Showing others grace and forgiveness, that's the only way you're going to get unstuck and get out of that situation. And I can tell you, I promise you, I've lived this where I've made the effort to go work on those relationships where inside I was feeling bitterness and hurt and resentment for these people where I have taken the action, even though it was hard and I didn't want to do it. Part of me didn't want to do it, and it was very difficult. Man, the freedom I found and that person found because of making the effort to go and have that hard conversation. But then, man, yes, like I was so liberated. This weight was just lifted off of me, and for that person as well. Like it's ended up in moments of just hugging and, man, yeah, like just God's love pouring out. So I'd encourage people, man, have those conversations, forgive those people, and let them know that you forgive them, and talk through it. You know?
Yeah, I love that.
It doesn't get better unless we do that.
It's a great point.
You know,
and it's a great concept for sure to tie in this whole past. So
yeah.
We appreciate you guys listening as always. I know it's a very sensitive topic. I don't ever want to talk down to say that, hey, there's people who've gone through traumatic issues from other people in the past. And sometimes the only way out, I would say, would be forgiveness.
Yeah,
and of course, seeking that which is above yourself, which is your relationship with God and with Christ, and sort of figure out how to navigate that. Certainly seek, spiritual counselors around you or close friends that can talk about some of these things, because you may be carrying heavy weights and or burdens from the past that you haven't unloaded. And they can manifest in depression, high blood pressure, obesity. I mean, all these things that, hey, you may be needing freedom from this and forgiveness and seeking that. So, or seeking to forgive others.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's no hurt or sin too big that you've committed or has been committed against you that, first of all, is not forgiven by God through Jesus. And then two, that you can work on and forgive and work through. So don't feel like you're stuck or and like he said, we're sensitive of that reality that we know there's trauma. We know because we've experienced it. And this is part of everybody's story. The story of humanity is, how we do go through brokenness and hurt, but by the grace of God, there is forgiveness, there is healing, and we can move forward.
Absolutely, he promises it. So, God bless you guys. Thank you very much for listening, and look forward to getting out some more content. And as always, like and subscribe if you get a chance to do that. We'd appreciate it. And comment below if you have any comments on this video or other topics. So, thank you very much. God bless.
God bless.